Welcome everyone. In today's lecture, we'll try to complete the little bit portion which is there in the nitrogen cycle, and then we'll try to solve the exercise questions also. Now, if we have to recap nitrogen cycle, if you have to just revise nitrogen cycle, what are the 5 steps of nitrogen cycle? So, in NCERT, in page number 201, right children? In 11th NCERT textbook, in page number 201, they have given the figure of nitrogen cycle, right? It is in figure 12.3. They have given the diagrammatic representation of nitrogen cycle. So in that, if you see, it starts with atmospheric nitrogen. Now, atmospheric nitrogen, 78% of atmospheric nitrogen cannot be taken up by the plant directly because it is an inert gas. Now, that should be converted to ammonia, and that step is called nitrogen fixation. That is our first step in nitrogen cycle. What is that? Nitrogen fixation, right? So, what happens? Tell me. So, microorganisms will convert them into ammonia. Right, they'll convert them into ammonia. What is this step called? This step of conversion of N2 to ammonia is called biological nitrogen fixation. Biological nitrogen fixation. Why are we calling it as biological? Since microorganisms are involved. Are there any other ways also to convert nitrogen to ammonia or nitrites and nitrates? Yes, industrial process is also there, right? Haber-Bosch process, and electrical process is also there. Electric discharges, thunder, storms, UV radiations, lightning. So what is that called? Electrical nitrogen fixation. So we can draw 2 more arrows, ma. We can draw 2 more arrows, and then we can tell what are those processes. One is called as industrial nitrogen fixation. Industrial nitrogen fixation, and the third one is called as electrical nitrogen fixation, right? It's called electrical nitrogen fixation. I will stretch this, yeah, right? The third one, we'll write it at the center. Atmospheric nitrogen. Now the third one is electrical nitrogen fixation. Now in this manner also, ammonia gets converted to nitrite, nitrite gets converted to nitrate, nitrite gets converted to nitrate, right? So in electrical nitrogen fixation, they have given the arrow towards nitrate. They've given the arrow towards nitrate. So, ma, what is this called? This is the first step in nitrogen cycle. What is it called? It is called nitrogen fixation. Let it be biological nitrogen fixation, or industrial nitrogen fixation, or electrical nitrogen fixation. So, we will convert N2 to ammonia, and then ammonia plant can absorb. Ammonia plant can absorb, but then it prefers to absorb more in the form of nitrate. So, ammonia to nitrite, nitrite to nitrate, these steps are called nitrification. What are these steps called? This is step 2. What is this called? Nitrification. Since plant prefers to absorb nitrogen in the form of nitrate, so we need to convert the ammonia into nitrite and nitrate. This is called nitrification. So this green indicates soil nitrogen pool, and this is atmospheric nitrogen, right? Now then, we are telling that the nitrite is absorbed by the plant. So let us draw an arrow and we tell uptake. Plant has taken it, and then it has built up its plant biomass. Plant has taken it and it has built its biomass. Plant biomass. Plant is growing. If the plant is growing, means it is making proteins, amino acids. So this step is called as nitrogen assimilation. What is this third step called? Taking the nitrate and then converting it into usable forms, organic forms like amino acids, proteins, hormones, and all those things is called nitrogen assimilation. Nitrogen assimilation. And plants are taken by animals, right? Plants are taken by animals, and animals will eat it, and animals will increase their biomass. So this is called animal biomass. This also comes under nitrogen assimilation only. This also comes under nitrogen assimilation only. Now what happens if animal dies? A point of time, death is inevitable for every living organism. So animal dies. At one point of time, even plant dies. When plant dies and animal dies, we call it as a decaying biomass, right? When animal dies and plant dies, we call it as decaying biomass. When plant dies and animal dies, we call it as decaying biomass, right? I'm stretching it, I'm increasing it. So decaying biomass. Now what happens to the dead and decomposing organic matter? The dead and decomposing organic matter undergoes decomposition. The complex organic materials are converted into simpler forms. They convert to simpler forms. Protein get converted to amino acids. From amino acids, ammonia is released out into the soil. Where will plant die or where will animal die? In the soil only. Means where does decomposition takes place? In the soil only. So where does ammonification takes place? In the soil only. So from the decaying biomass, ammonification will occur. From the decaying biomass, ammonification will occur. Now first step is nitrogen fixation, second step is nitrification, third step is nitrogen assimilation, fourth step is ammonification, where the dead body's organic matter is converted into simpler forms. Proteins are converted into amino acids. Amino acids, from there we remove ammonia group. That's called ammonification, and ammonia comes back into the soil. This is ammonia, right? Ammonia comes back into the soil by a process called ammonification. This is the fourth step. This is the fourth step. Now we will see the microorganisms which are involved in ammonifications. We'll write notes here and then we will see. It is bacillus only, right? And the last step is, if you see all the arrows are down, this arrow is down, this arrow is down, this arrow is also to the soil only, down only. In order to maintain the balance between the nitrogen, the atmosphere and the soil, in order to maintain a balance of nitrogen to the atmosphere and to the soil, there should be some bacteria which can remove nitrogen from the soil, give it to the atmosphere. Then last step, that is called denitrification. What is that step called? Denitrification means in nitrification or in nitrogen fixation, nitrogen to ammonia from top to bottom in denitrification. So either ammonia or nitrite or nitrate will get converted into atmospheric nitrogen. It gets converted into atmospheric nitrogen. So what is this fifth step called as? The fifth step is called as denitrification. This fifth step is called as denitrification. In denitrification, ammonia gets converted to nitrite, nitrite gets converted to nitrate, and that nitrate gets converted to atmospheric nitrogen. It gets converted to atmospheric nitrogen. A balance is maintained. Children, these are the 5 steps of nitrogen cycle. In the form of NCERT cycle only we understood. So they might skip this and they'll tell A, what is this process? Biological nitrogen fixation. They might cover this and they might give B, what is this? Industrial nitrogen fixation. They might cover this and they'll tell what is this? Electrical nitrogen fixation. They might cover here and they will ask you what is this? This is denitrification. They will cover this and they'll ask uptake. They'll cover this and they'll ask plant biomass, animal biomass, decaying biomass, ammonification. You need to thoroughly understand the nitrogen cycle in this manner also. Take a screenshot, then we will talk about ammonification and denitrification and the bacteria which are involved here. Right, now in the previous lectures we tried to cover the 3 steps. Now just we will write down the microorganisms which are involved in the 4th step and 5th step, and we will finish off the chapter. Then we can work out with the exercise questions which are there at the end of the chapter. Right, ma? So step 4 is ammonification. Now, just now we have seen what is ammonification. The organic compounds, the nitrogenous organic compounds which are present in the dead plant body, dead animal body is decomposed into ammonia. So, come on, tell me what is ammonification? The nitrogenous organic compounds means proteins, no? The nitrogenous organic compounds, where are they present? Present in the dead bodies of animals and plants. Present in the dead bodies of animals, plants. What happens to this one? They are decomposed into ammonia. Are decomposed into NH3, ammonia, or ammonium ion. They are either decomposed into ammonia or they are decomposed into ammonium ion. This process of releasing ammonia from dead body is called as ammonification. This process is called, children, what is it? Ammonification. This step is called ammonification, and the microorganisms, the bacteria which are involved here are called ammonifying bacteria. The bacteria involved in this process, what are they called? Are called ammonifying bacteria. The bacteria which are involved in this process are called ammonifying bacteria, and I told you they belong to a genus called Bacillus. Bacillus vulgaris, Bacillus ramosus, Bacillus mycoides. Whenever microorganism comes, I ask you to pronounce with me so that the terms become familiar for you also, like me. Tell me the bacteria which are involved in ammonification are called as Bacillus vulgaris, Bacillus ramosus, Bacillus mycoides. Okay, let us write down ammonifying bacteria. Examples are, one is called Bacillus, right? Ramosus is one bacteria. Another one we can write like this also. B, if we keep full stop, that indicates it's Bacillus. Another one is Bacillus vulgaris. And the third one is also Bacillus only mycoides. The third one is called Bacillus mycoides. So we finished the fourth step in nitrogen cycle. The last step, right? What is the last and final step of nitrogen cycle? Denitrification. So the last step is denitrification. Right, children? What is denitrification? Just now I told you it's the last and final step in nitrogen cycle. So this is the last and final step in nitrogen cycle. This is the last step in nitrogen cycle where the soil nitrate gets converted to atmospheric nitrogen, where NO3 gets converted to atmospheric nitrogen. So this is in order to maintain the equilibrium between the nitrogen in the atmosphere and the soil. So this is why it is to maintain. This is to maintain equilibrium. It is to maintain equilibrium between atmosphere and the soil. Between atmosphere and the soil. And again, microorganisms are only involved here also in denitrification. Then what are the bacteria called? Denitrifying bacteria. So write down the bacteria involved in this process. What are they called? They are called denitrifying bacteria. The bacteria involved in this process are called denitrifying bacteria, and examples are Pseudomonas denitrificans, Thiobacillus denitrificans, Micrococcus denitrificans. Pronounce with me: Pseudomonas denitrificans, Thiobacillus denitrificans, Micrococcus denitrificans. Under ammonifying we have seen 3 examples. Under denitrifying also, let us see the 3 examples. One is Pseudomonas denitrificans, one bacteria name. Another bacteria name is Thiobacillus denitrificans. Another name is Micrococcus denitrificans. These are the 3 bacteria which are involved in conversion of nitrate into atmospheric nitrogen, and it is done in 4 steps, right? Conversion of nitrate into ammonia is done in 4 steps. This is a 4-step process, children. This is a 4-step process. First, NO3 gets converted to NO2. NO2 gets converted to NO. NO gets converted to N2O, then N2. So it's a 4-step process. First, take 2 molecules of nitrates and then go to 2 molecules of nitrite. Then go to NO, make NO. Then we have to make N2O. Then make 2 nitrogen, or we can write it like this: N2, right? I told it's a 4-step process. First step is conversion of nitrate to nitrite, conversion of nitrite to nitric oxide, nitric oxide to nitrogen dioxide, and then to atmospheric nitrogen. So this is a 4-step process. So NO3 to NO2, NO2 to NO, NO to N2O, N2 to atmospheric nitrogen. Who will do these steps? 3 bacteria. They are called denitrifying bacteria. Their names are Pseudomonas denitrificans, Thiobacillus denitrificans, Micrococcus denitrificans. Okay. Now nitrification and denitrification. Nitrification is the 2nd step, right? Nitrification and denitrification, both are exergonic processes only. What do you mean exergonic? Both the processes will release energy. Okay. So where shall I write? I'll write there: nitrification and denitrification both are exergonic processes. Nitrification and denitrification. Nitrification is the 2nd step. Denitrification is the 5th step. Nitrification and denitrification both are exergonic processes. What do you mean exergonic process? Energy is released. Whereas first step, nitrogen fixation, 16 molecules are ATP for making 2 ammonia molecules. Means the first step is endergonic. It is consuming nitrogen, right? So first step, what is the first step called? Biological nitrogen fixation. Nitrogen fixation is exergonic and endergonic. It is taking ATP, consuming ATP. So it is endergonic process, right children? Very important points I wrote here, so make a note. Nitrification and denitrification will give energy. Nitrification and denitrification will give energy. Nitrogen fixation is consuming energy. Nitrogen fixation is endergonic. It is endergonic. With this we completed nitrogen cycle in detail. Each and every step, every corner, loop and corner we completed. So with this we completed the chapter also. Now take a screenshot, then we will talk about the NCERT exercises questions. I think there are 10 or 11 questions. We'll solve that also. Take a screenshot fast. Right, you took the screenshot. Now let us talk about the NCERT exercise questions. Can I erase this? We finished the chapter, right? Now if you study in this detailed manner, come on, tell me, why are you not potent to get 360 out of 360? You can. You have to study the topic in this detailed manner. Okay. try to understand the concepts in this manner, so then no one can stop you. You can score out in biology NEET. Now let us talk about NCERT exercise questions also. Don't think that madam is telling like she is giving us NEET orientation and why she is giving us question and answers, descriptive question and answers. You know, some points we understand through question and answers also. Each and every corner of our NCERT textbook is related to NEET only. Let it be subjective question, let it be objective question. So we need to look into the NCERT exercise questions also. So that's why we'll do this also. NCERT exercise questions, and in the next lecture we'll try to cover the NCERT exemplar and the previous NEET questions also. Now the first question what they have given is all essential elements that are present in the plant. All essential elements that are present in the plant need not be essential, right? First question. All, not all essential elements, all elements present in the plant need not be essential. All the elements which are present in the plant body need not be essential for its survival or to its survival. Survival comment they asked. This is our first question. Now try to understand what did they ask us. All the elements which are present in the soil need not be essential. Try to comment. Okay, now come on, tell me now whatever elements are there in the soil, plant will take all of them. Plant will absorb the essential elements also, plant will absorb the non-essential elements also, and it will take it. If it is an essential element, it will be used by the plant during its metabolic reactions. If it is a non-essential element, it just gets accumulated there. So for example, if you check a plant which is near to the radioactive centers, now radioactive elements also the plant will take. Now why plant will need radioactive elements? It doesn't require it at all, but they have seen that the plants which are grown near to the nuclear test centers, they have strontium also in them, which is a radioactive element which plant has no role with it. Means if it is there in the surrounding, yeah, take it and keep it inside, it will do that. Now plant will absorb gold also, plant will absorb silver also, plant will absorb so many other elements which are not at all there in the plant metabolism at all. So in this manner, Amma, you have to explain this. Whatever is there in the soil, plant will absorb it. Near the radioactive test centers, it will absorb strontium. I'm not writing the sentences on the board. I'll try to give the explanation because all these points are covered in the NCERT textbook itself. You listen to me through the explanation. So from the nuclear test centers, they take strontium, they take gold also, they take palladium also, silver also, and we don't see these elements in the plant metabolism. If you are not seeing them in the plant metabolism, means they are not essential elements. This is the explanation. Got it? Now the second question is, why is purification of water and nutrient salts? Second question is, why is purification of water and water and mineral salts, why we need to take purified water, why we need to take purified nutrient salts, so important in studies, so important in studies. What studies? When we are doing hydroponics. In hydroponics. Now children, tell me, so what is hydroponics? Growing plants in soilless culture, without soil. If you are growing a plant in a nutrient solution, that's called hydroponics. Who discovered this technique? Julius von Sack discovered this technique, right? And this hydroponics has helped us to understand so many things. It has helped us to understand what are the essential elements, what is their role, which concentration, to which concentration plant requires it. If you don't give that concentration, concentration, then what deficiency symptoms the plant will show? If we give more than the required concentration, what toxic effects the plant will show? All this we came to know through hydroponic experiment only. Now, through hydroponic experiment, when we are doing these many studies, and in that studies, if we are taking a normal tap water or a borewell water or some other water sources, if you are taking which is not a purified water, they contain so many impurities, they contain heavy metals also in different concentration. Then how can you determine? If you take distilled water, if you take purified water in which minerals are not there, in which pH is maintained, then whatever results you are getting are perfect results. There is no interference with any other element. So that is why purification of water is required. What explanation I gave? Why is purified water required in this soilless culture? Means, so if you take a tap water or if you take a pond water or a borewell water, now that contains so many heavy metals, they contain so many impurities, their pH will change and it interferes with giving the proper results. Minerals also, if the concentration, it should not be there. Whatever you are adding, that should give you the data. So if already minerals are there and you already added, the concentration will change, no? So that's why we need to use purified water in which minerals should not be there, and we should be able to control the pH also. Understood, children? This is an explanation for second question. Now the third question is explain with examples. In NCERT, the third question is explain with examples. They asked us explain with examples. What are macronutrients? They asked. What are micronutrients? They asked. And what are toxic nutrients? They asked. What are beneficial nutrients? Beneficial elements we can write. What are beneficial elements? And what are essential elements? This is our third question. Right, children? We know that how many elements are there altogether? 105 elements are so far discovered. In that, 60 elements are found in different plants. 105 elements are there. In that, 60 elements are found in different plants, but 30 elements are universally found in all the plants. How many? 30 elements are universally found in all the plants. That is why 30 are universal elements. Among these 30 universal elements, 17 are essential, 13 are non-essential. So how many essential elements are there, ma? 17 are essential elements and 13 are non-essential elements. 17 are essential, 13 are non-essential. What is this? What do you mean by essential? What do you mean by non-essential? Essential element means it is required by the plant for its growth, development, reproduction. If you don't give it, plant shows deficiency symptom. Plant will exhibit deficiency symptoms. So that's why we're telling it is essential. Now, what are non-essential elements? Even if you don't give also, plant will not bother. Plant will not exhibit because it's not using it. It will not show any deficiency symptoms. Then they are called non-essential elements. Understood, children? So 17 are essential, 13 are non-essential. Again, in this 17 essential, depending on how much concentration they are present, we will classify them into macro elements and micro elements. That's what here they have given, macronutrients and micronutrients. So it is essential if it is present in more concentrations. If it is present more than 10 millimoles per kg dry matter, then that is macro. If it is present less than, if the element concentration is less than 10 millimoles per kg dry weight, then that is micro element. Now divide this 17 essential elements into 9 macro and 8 micro. So how many macronutrients are there? 9 are there. How many micronutrients are there? 8 are there. 9 elements here and 8 elements here. And I have given the codes also for you. How do we remember the 9 elements, right? So I told CHO, then MPN and CSK. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So these 9 are macronutrients. Okay, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, magnesium, phosphorus, nitrogen. Then here calcium, sulfur, potassium. These 9 are macro, which are present in the plant in more than 10 millimoles per kg. Micro elements, 8 elements. Do you remember what code we made? We made a code called C square IBM square Zn is our code. So C square 1 and 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So here one C comes for chlorine, another C comes for copper. I for iron, B for boron, 1 M for manganese, another M for molybdenum, Z for zinc, N for nickel. So 8 are micronutrients. Why are they micronutrients? Because they are present in the plant at a concentration less than 10 millimoles per kg dry matter, right children? Now coming to toxic nutrients. Coming to toxic nutrients. Toxic nutrients means if you don't give the element, essential element in the defined concentration, if you give lesser than the concentration, it shows deficiency. If the plant takes more than the concentration than required, then it shows toxic nutrients. And usually macronutrients will become toxic or micronutrients will become toxic. Micronutrients only will become toxic. For this I gave explanation, I told. So desserts and all, sweet dishes and all, we are supposed to eat only little. We like it, but if you eat it in the scale what we are eating over lunch and breakfast and dinner and all, if you eat these many sweets, is it good or it's toxic? Absolutely it is toxic. We should not take these many sweets together at a time. Sugar levels will shoot up, right? Blood becomes thicker. Okay, so toxic nutrients means most of the micronutrients, because the concentration of the micronutrient is this much, little less than this deficiency, little more than this toxicity. So toxic nutrients, who will show toxic nutrients? The micronutrients. Micronutrients usually show toxicity. The micronutrients usually show toxicity when the concentration is more than required concentration. In NCERT, manganese toxicity they have given. In NCERT, manganese toxicity they have given, right? Then the next one is beneficial elements. Beneficial elements. I'm not your teacher, right? So I'm not in your college, I'm not teaching you. But yeah, our association is beneficial. It is helping you to get good score in biology. So like that, beneficial elements means they are not essential elements. They are not essential elements. They come under non-essential elements only. But their presence will enhance the growth. Their presence will enhance the growth. Their absence will not show any deficiency. Their absence will not show any deficiency, but their presence will enhance the score. Their presence will enhance the growth and development. Then call them as beneficial elements. What is the code for beneficial elements? We made a code here also. S3 and CO. CO stands for cobalt. S3 stands for sodium, selenium and silicon. Sodium, selenium and silicon with cobalt. 4 elements comes under beneficial elements. So we completed 3 questions which are there in the NCERT exercises. Take a screenshot and then we will go with the 4th question. Right. Now the 4th question is, they are asking us to identify 5 deficiency symptoms what plant will exhibit when the elements are absent, and they are asking us even to correlate. Okay, chlorosis, which element deficiency causes chlorosis? They are asking us to correlate with the deficient element also. That is our 4th question, right? Now our 4th question in NCERT exercises is what they're telling. So they're asking us to name at least 5 different deficiency symptoms. Name at least 5 different deficiency symptoms and correlate with the element also they are asking. Come on, in NCERT there's a para on the right hand side, first para. So they have given 4 disorders: chlorosis, necrosis, and then inhibition of cell division and delay in flowering. 4 they have given. First let us list down those 4 deficiency symptoms. The first one is chlorosis. The next one is necrosis. The third one is inhibition in cell division. And fourth one will be delay in flowering. These are the 4 in NCERT they have given us. And let us add one more. Heart rot in beetroot. Heart rot in beetroot. I took this as a 5th deficiency. Now chlorosis, loss of chlorophyll is called chlorosis. Then green color will be lost. The plant and leaves and veins will become yellow. That's called chlorosis. Here also I made a code. I told 8 elements will cause chlorosis, right? 8 elements deficiency will cause chlorosis. 8 elements deficiency will cause chlorosis. 4 elements deficiency will cause necrosis. Then what are the 8 elements? What is the code we have made for chlorosis? Come on, tell me. What is the code we have made for chlorosis? It is M cube, right? It is M cube KIS 1 2 3 4 5 6, and I think ZN we made the code. M cube, KIS and ZN is the code. Now M cube means manganese, molybdenum and magnesium, all 3 M's. K for potassium, I for iron, S for sulfur, Z for zinc, N for nitrogen. N for nitrogen. What are the 8 elements which cause chlorosis? The code is M cube, KIS and ZN. Manganese, molybdenum and magnesium. Then potassium, iron, sulfur, zinc and nitrogen. These 8 elements will cause chlorosis. Green color is lost, the plant becomes yellow. Next one is necrosis. What do you mean by necrosis? Necrosis means the plant elasticity is lost, it becomes fiber like necritic, it's about to die. That is called necrosis. Necrosis is caused by 4 elements. The code what we have made is C square Km. C square Km will cause necrosis, right? Now inhibition of cell division. Inhibition of cell division is, what is the code we made there? We made a code called MONKS. And delay in flowering we made a code called MONS, right? MO for molybdenum, N for nitrogen, K for potassium, S for sulfur. That means how many elements? 1 2 3 4. 4 elements deficiency will cause inhibition of cell division. So 1 2 3. 3 elements deficiency will cause delay in flowering. Flower is a reproductive part, then its reproductive cycle is getting delayed if the plant is deficient with molybdenum, nitrogen and sulfur. So the last one is heart rot in beetroot is caused by boron deficiency. Heart rot in beetroot is caused by boron deficiency, right children? The younger twigs, the younger leaves at the center of the beetroot will die off. That's called heart rot in beetroot. They asked us 5 deficiency symptoms. We have given all the 5 deficiency symptoms with the elements which cause them also we have given. So 4th question got over. Now 5th question is, if a plant shows deficiency symptoms which could, let us write on. If a plant shows deficiency symptoms, they're asking us if a plant shows deficiency symptoms which could develop due to deficiency of other elements also, which could develop due to deficiency of other elements also. How would you conclude is the question. How would you conclude? This table will help us. Now see, like nitrogen deficiency will cause chlorosis also. Nitrogen deficiency will cause inhibition in cell division also. Nitrogen deficiency will cause delay in flowering also, right? Now means chlorosis is caused by deficiency of 8 elements together. How do you know that it is because of nitrogen deficiency only? chlorosis is caused by 8 elements deficiency. How do you came to know it is by nitrogen deficiency only? They are asking us. I gave the clue here. So nitrogen will not only cause chlorosis, nitrogen deficiency will also cause inhibition in cell division. The plant is not doing division also, and the plant is not flowering also, delay in flowering. If the plant shows all these 3 symptoms, then obviously it is nitrogen only, right? It is nitrogen only. And sulfur is also there. Here also sulfur is there. Here also sulfur is there. Here also sulfur is there. So means like your logarithmic table, you have each element deficient table. From that deficient table, so we need to check out, we need to completely study this element causes these many deficiencies, and we need to check with the plant. Yes, the plant is showing all the deficiency elements related to nitrogen are related to sulfur. So we need to check all the deficiencies what it causes, and then we need to compare with the standard, like a logarithmic table. We have another table also, we need to check there. That is question number 5. Now question number 6 is, why is that deficiency symptoms appear for some elements, deficiency symptoms occur in the younger parts, for some elements deficient symptoms occurs in the older part? That's the question. Why is it that some plants show deficiency symptoms in younger tissues? Some plants will show deficiency symptoms in younger tissues, and some will show in older senescent tissues. Some are showing deficiency symptoms in the older tissues, some are showing in the younger tissues. Why is a question given to us by the author. If you remember, we can classify elements under mobile elements and immobile elements. Mobile elements and immobile elements. Suppose for example, if I have a mobile phone and if I got a call, I need to give it to my family members, I can just pass on the mobile, because mobile phone can go, right? So I can pass on it to the some other room also, because mobile phone can go. If I'm having a landline connection and if the phone is ringing here, so then I should ask my family members to come and attend the call here, because this phone can't move. Land phone can't move, right? So in the same manner, there are certain elements which are called mobile elements and immobile elements, like your land phone, which is immobile element, and like your mobile phone, which is mobile elements. Now mobile elements, from the older parts they move off to the younger parts, or from the mobile elements they move off from the older senescent parts to the younger parts. So mobile elements deficiency symptoms first will appear in the older parts. Mobile element deficiency symptoms will appear first in the older parts, whereas immobile elements, if you see, immobile elements, they are there with the older parts only. They can't move from the older parts, senescent parts. Now immobile element deficiency symptoms appear in the younger tissues because they cannot move. So mobile elements, they show deficiency symptoms. Where do they show deficiency symptoms? With the older tissue. With the older tissue, whereas immobile elements show deficiency symptoms with the younger tissue. They show deficiency symptoms. They show deficiency symptoms with younger tissue, because from older tissue they are not coming, right? They can't move, right? So that is why younger tissues will show deficiency symptoms if it is an immobile element. Examples for immobile elements are calcium and sulfur, children. Example for immobile elements is, one is calcium, the other one is sulfur. Rest all, leaving these two elements, rest all are mobile elements. Rest all essential elements are mobile only. They are mobile only. Okay. So what did we discuss in this board? Fourth question, fifth question and sixth question. In fourth question, they asked us deficiency symptoms with elements. 5 deficiency symptoms they asked: chlorosis, necrosis, inhibition of cell division, delay in flowering, heart rot in beet, and the elements also I wrote it here, right? Now fifth question, if a plant shows deficiency symptoms, now which could be due to deficiency of other elements also. How can you tell it is by nitrogen deficiency only? Then we need to see nitrogen will cause what and all deficiency. It causes this deficiency, it causes this one also, it causes this one also, and we need to compare with the standard table which is available as a reference, and then we will conclude. Next one, why is that some plant shows deficiency in the younger tissues only? Means the answer is it's an immobile element. Why is that some plant shows deficiency symptoms in the older tissues only? It means that it is a mobile element. Take a screenshot, we will continue. Right, children? Now let us talk about the 7th question. In 7th question they asked, how are elements absorbed by the plant? I made a video in detail, like we have explained you like how the minerals are absorbed by the plants. So the initial phase is rapid transport. The initial phase, it is into the spaces. It is rapid transport. It is called apoplast. And the next phase is into the cells, and it is symplast, right? So question number 7, how are minerals absorbed by the plant? How are minerals absorbed by plant is a question. How are minerals absorbed by the plant is question. So in detail I explained it in the one of the lecture, like some elements, the initial uptake. The initial uptake by the plant, it is rapid, it is fast, it is along the concentration, the gradient, and it is passive process. It is passive process, right? Okay, and it goes into the spaces only. It is the movement of substances into spaces. But whereas if we talk about the second phase, the second phase we told it is slow. It is slow and it is against the concentration we told. It is against the concentration. And since it is against the concentration, it is active transport. Active transport means it requires ATP. It requires energy, and it is inside the cytoplasm. The minerals are going into the cytoplasm. The minerals are going into the cytoplasm. Since it is moving through the spaces, we call this movement as apoplast. And since it is crossing the membrane and going into the cytoplasm, this is called symplast. Since no energy, this is passive transport. Since ATP is used, this is active transport. And then we also talked about ion exchange. We also talked about ion exchange. We talked about H plus and K plus, how are they exchanged. We talked about H plus and bicarbonate, how are they exchanged, right? So ion exchange we discussed, mass flow we discussed, mass flow of ions also we discussed. I'll post the description of in which lecture I discussed this in the description box. You can check there. Okay, so but this is enough. Initial uptake is rapid, it is fast, and it is along the concentration, means from high concentration to low concentration, and it's a passive process. No energy is required. It goes into the spaces only. It will not get into the cell, and it's an apoplast process. In second phase, it's a slow process. It is from low concentration to high concentration. It requires carrier membrane proteins. It requires ATP. It goes into the cytoplasm. It is called symplast. Carrier membrane proteins with the help of exchangers, ion exchange, mass flow ions, all this will occur. Then question number 8. Next question. Question number 8. What are the conditions necessary? What are the conditions necessary? What are the conditions necessary for nitrogen fixation by Rhizobium bacteria? by Rhizobium bacteria. When I am taking a class, what are the necessary conditions? First, I need to log on to the YouTube studio. I need to check whether the markers are there or not. I need to check whether proper lighting is there or not. I need to check whether there is any disturbance there or not, and I need to check whether my like instrument is charged or not. All these are the conditions. Then only I can shoot it and then I can post it, export it, right? In the same manner, what are the conditions which are required for nitrogen fixation by the Rhizobium bacteria? So the first one is the bacteria should synthesize the enzyme. So what is that enzyme? Nitrogenase. Nitrogenase enzyme should be there, correct? Nitrogenase enzyme should be there, and we know that this enzyme is very sensitive to oxygen. So then we should have the enzyme should be protected against oxygen. So protection of enzyme, we need to protect the enzyme against oxygen concentration. Now who will come to take the oxygen? Leg hemoglobin acts as a scavenger, traps the oxygen, maintains anaerobic conditions. Now we can write on leg hemoglobin. It acts as scavenger, it traps the oxygen. This should be there. Nitrogen fixation, for fixing 2 ammonia 16 ATP are required, means constant supply of energy also should be there. For nitrogen fixation, constant supply of energy in terms of ATP also should be there. This is one condition. And we can tell electron carriers, ferredoxin will take the electron, gives it to iron dimer, iron will give it to iron molybdenum, iron molybdenum will give to N2, like that. Electron carrier like ferredoxin is required. So electron carrier like ferredoxin is required. And we know that the enzyme contains iron, the enzyme contains molybdenum. So the plant should have enough sources of iron, molybdenum and cobalt. So there should be requirement of iron should be there, cobalt should be there, molybdenum should be there. When all these conditions are provided, then Rhizobium easily it can do nitrogen fixation. It helps in conversion of atmospheric nitrogen to ammonia, children. So what did we discuss in this board? Question number 7 and question number 8. How are minerals absorbed by the plant? Initial uptake is apoplast, next uptake is symplast. Next question, what are the conditions which are required for nitrogen fixation by Rhizobium bacteria? The first condition, the bacteria should synthesize the enzyme. The enzyme should be protected from oxygen by leg hemoglobin will do that. Then constant supply of energy, because it's highly energetically expensive process. Electron carriers like ferredoxin should be there, and some important elements which are part of nitrogenous enzyme like iron, molybdenum, cobalt should be there. Then it can do nitrogen fixation. It converts atmospheric nitrogen to ammonia. Take a screenshot, we will discuss. Right. Next question is, what are the steps involved in nodule formation? Children, this also, for 9th question also, we have done a separate lecture. I discussed step by step in the flow chart what are the steps involved in root nodule formation. What are the steps involved in root nodule formation? What are the steps involved in root nodule formation? First, we know that the root exudate. The root releases sugars and amino acids. Then the bacteria gets attracted. The bacteria gets attracted. Then the bacteria synthesizes nod factors. Then in turn the plant root hair curls. The plant root hair curls. Right? When it curls, the plant secretes lectins. Then the bacteria stick to this lectins. Then the bacteria damage the hair, root hair. The bacteria damage the root hair and invades inside, right? The bacteria damage that it invades inside. Now Golgi and plasma membrane will make the infection thread. Golgi and plasma will make the infection thread. The bacteria travel through the infection thread and reach cortex. Now meanwhile, the cortex and pericycle cells, they de-differentiate and form a mass. That mass is called nodule. All these are the steps in root nodule formation. I explained this in detail. Again, I'll post in which lecture I explained it. Check the description box. Okay. So first, what are the steps involved in root nodule formation? Means first the plant will secrete sugars and amino acids. The bacteria which is there in the soil get attracted towards the sugar and amino acids and it moves. It accumulates near the root hairs and bacteria will tell, I am present, I am near you. It sends a signal by secreting Nod factors. Then plant will tell, okay, I identified you. Then the plant curls around it. Then the plant again secretes a sticking substance called lectin. To that bacteria will stick, means that contact is established now. Then the bacteria will damage, it invades and gets inside. Meanwhile, a road is made, a path is made. It's called infection thread. Who will make it? Golgi and plasma membrane will make the infection thread. Nicely in that path, it will reach the cortex. Meanwhile, the cortex cells and pericycle cells, they will de-differentiate, they make a mass or tissue called nodule. In this nodule, the bacteria will multiply, proliferate. Now, in nodule, the bacteria will proliferate, they will multiply and they become bacteroids. Bacteroids are active. They make the enzyme nitrogenase. They will do the nitrogen fixation. That's it. This is our 9th question. In 10th question, they have given some statements. They asked us identify whether they are correct or wrong statements. One question they asked is boron deficiency leads to stout axis. Now boron deficiency, it will not allow to translocate the minerals, right? Boron helps in sugar translocation. Now if boron is not there, the sugar is not translocated, the sugar is not moving up, then it gets accumulated there only, then it becomes stout there only. This is true statement. Boron deficiency leads to stout axis. Yes. Why? Because when boron is not there, translocation of sugars will not happen. Next one, every mineral element that is present in the cell is needed by the cell. No, right? Radioactive element, strontium, it will take it, gold, it will take it. Is it required by the plant? False statement. Nitrogen as a nutrient element is highly immobile to the plants. Nitrogen is a mobile element. Calcium and sulfur are only immobile elements. So this is also false statement. Is it very easy to establish the essentiality of micronutrients? No. Essentiality is very difficult to establish because they are required only in trace concentrations. No, this is also false statement. It is very difficult to establish essentiality. Right, children? We completed all the NCERT exercise questions. If the content is informative, you enjoyed the lectures, post me in the comment box. If you like the content, share it with friends. In the next lecture, we'll do the exemplar questions also from this chapter. Thank you.